The tube of crimson lipstick, Scarlet Letter, sat on her desk like a loaded gun. It wasn't a cosmetic. It was the terms of engagement in a silent but legal war between a powerful, lonely woman and the teenage boy who had just destroyed her life with 3 taps of his phone screen. Amelia Carter, 40 and standing on the brittle glass ceiling of her own success as the new manager of the floundering Crestview Publishing, was a masterpiece of composure. Her sharp black bob was a blade, her wardrobe armor. But in the hollow quiet of the office after hours, the armor cracked. The glow of her laptop illuminated the secret, shameful film she watched to feel something, anything other than the suffocating weight of a failing company and a husband. Richard, whose indifference was a constant, low-grade chill. She didn't hear the shadow in the doorway. She didn't see the glint of the phone camera. In one unguarded moment, 17-year-old Leo, the brilliant, impoverished temporary tech assistant, seized a weapon of mass destruction. The confrontation came the next day, not with a bang, but a smirk in the sun-drenched hallway. "You have terrible situational awareness, Mrs. Carter," Leo murmured, falling into step beside her. "You should really know who's watching you." The trap snapped shut. He had photos, evidence. He held her entire carefully constructed world in the palm of his hand. Panic, cold and slick, coiled in her gut, but beneath it, a fierce, survivalist fury ignited. She would not be blackmailed by a child dot in the sterile confinement of her office, the power dynamics warped. He sprawled in the client chair, a king of ruin. She stood behind her desk, a dethroned queen. His demand was deceptively simple: lunch. At an upscale bistro she paid for, he probed her emptiness. "Why those movies? Is your life that boring?" The question was a scalpel. She demanded the deletion of the photos. "I already did," he shrugged, the lie transparent. Seizing a moment of perceived victory, she later stole his phone from his jacket, a surge of grim triumph flooding her. She had outmaneuvered him. Her triumph lasted precisely 47 minutes. A frantic crisis erupted. The company's social media accounts were under a vicious targeted hack. The literary director, Michael, and the PR head, Danielle, were in meltdown. They needed Leo, their tech savant, immediately. Leo appeared, all faux concern. "I need my phone to activate the security protocols," he stated, his eyes finding Amelia's across the room. "Has anyone seen it?" The realization hit her like a physical blow. The hack, the panic, it was his creation. A masterfully engineered crisis to force the return of his phone. He hadn't just caught her. He'd outplayed her. A terrifying, reluctant admiration cut through her fear. This was not a simple predator. This was a strategic genius. Flushed with a confusing cocktail of humiliation and awe, she retreated to the bathroom. Staring at her perfect, hollow reflection, an idea bloomed reckless, mad, and utterly compelling. She applied her boldest lipstick, the shade called Scarlet Letter. Finding him by the service elevator, she pressed the tube into his hand. "A token," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Whoever holds it can make one demand of the other, anything, and it must be fulfilled. No questions, no objections. A game, a structured mutual destruction." His smirk softened into genuine intrigue. He pocketed the lipstick. "My move." The game became their clandestine language, a circuit through which a dangerous electric current began to flow. His first demand was a psychological barb: "Yell at someone who isn't me." She spent a morning in agony before publicly berating her kind secretary, Chloe, for a minor pre-approved early departure, her heart breaking even as she performed the cruelty. Leo's grin of approval from across the office sent a traitorous thrill through her veins. Her retaliation came after a soul-crushing evening with Richard, who belittled her work in front of his friends. From a bathroom stall, she texted Leo, "Your demand: derail the senior staff meeting tomorrow. Create chaos." At 10:15 a.m., a crew of janitors with roaring buffers stormed the conference room, claiming Mrs. Carter sent us for the appreciation cake. Pandemonium reigned. Leo caught her eye, gave a slight nod. Demand fulfilled. The shared secret was a potent, addictive drug dot the lipstick passed back and forth. Each exchange a charged transaction that blurred the lines between coercion and conspiracy, punishment and flirtation. His next demand was absurd humiliation. Come to work dressed like a 90s pop singer. At 7 a.m., in a neon crop top and baggy jeans dug from her attic, she walked into Crestview to gasps and drop jaws. But Leo's look wasn't mockery. It was pure, unadulterated admiration. "You look iconic," he breathed. For the first time in a decade, she felt seen not as a manager or a wife, but as a person capable of rebellion. The game deepened, becoming a conduit for a connection that terrified them both. Amelia's demand sent Leo to orchestrate a dramatic, perfectly timed blackout at a major book fair, an act of corporate sabotage that should have gotten them fired, but instead left them breathless with shared adrenaline in a dark storage closet, their bodies inches apart, the air thick with unsaid things. His demand led her on a midnight scavenger hunt across the city, ending at the planetarium where they talked for hours under a painted cosmos. He spoke of his struggling mother who saw him as a failure, his younger brother he protected, his feeling of being a ghost in his own life. She confessed the loneliness of her curated existence, the slow death of her spirit in a silent marriage. The age gap yawned between them, a chasm of legality and morality, but across it, a bridge of profound understanding was being built, plank by dangerous plank. The romantic tension was a physical presence. It was in the brush of his hand against hers as he took the lipstick. It was in the locked gaze held a second too long during tedious meetings. It was in the way his laughter, young and unfettered, made something long frozen in her chest begin to thaw. It was a slow, exquisite burn, and Amelia, the master of control, was losing her grip on the need to extinguish it. The dam broke during a high-stakes press conference luncheon. A spike of possessive jealousy lanced through Amelia when she saw Leo laughing intimately with Chloe. Possessing the lipstick, she drifted past him, her whisper a hot brand against his ear. "My turn. Make this lunch memorable." She saw the challenge ignite in his eyes. Noticing the deserted dessert cart, he acted with a magician's speed, sprinkling a powdered sedative meant for his brother's anxious dog over a plate of chocolate truffles. As speeches droned, the room descended into surreal bedlam. Michael and Danielle erupted into a screaming, tearful fight. Then, one by one, guests and staff began to slump in their chairs, succumbing to a powerful, sudden drowsiness. Within minutes, the entire event lay silent, a room full of gently snoring bodies. In the shocking quiet, only Amelia and Leo remained standing, co-conspirators in a breathtakingly irresponsible act. The look they shared was one of complicit insanity. They had just crossed a line from game into felony. And in that moment, staring at the wreckage they'd created together, Amelia felt more alive, more potent than she had in 20 years in the fraught. Suspended aftermath blamed on tainted catering by a furious CEO Ronnie Amelia made her demand. "The pool, today. Just us." They drove to a hotel an hour away, a world apart. The afternoon sun danced on the water. They swam, they talked without subtext or strategy. They laughed with an ease that felt like a birthright. The tension, so carefully curated, finally became unbearable. In the dim hotel room, with the door locked and the world outside forgotten, the last of her resistance dissolved. His touch was not that of a boy, but of a young man startlingly attuned to her, his passion fierce and focused solely on her awakening. It was legally wrong, morally fraught, and emotionally cataclysmic. And as she surrendered, It felt like the only truly right thing she had done since. She was a girl. The guilt that followed was immediate and corrosive. For 3 weeks, Amelia hid, working from home, burying herself in the sterile routine of her marriage, ignoring Leo's desperate calls and texts. Richard, misreading her withdrawal as submission, chose this moment to deliver his ultimatum. I've accepted the London position. We relocate in a month. You'll resign from Crestview. It was not a discussion. It was a sentencing. The walls of her gilded cage, which she had begun to rattle, now turned to solid, impenetrable steel, numb. She went to the office to tender her resignation. As she uttered the words to Ronnie, she felt Leo's presence like a change in barometric pressure. He had heard everything. The devastation that crumpled his face was absolute. He followed her out to the stark, concrete fire escape. London? You're just leaving? His voice, usually so sure, was shattered glass. All her fear, self-loathing, and trapped rage erupted. This is madness, Leo, not love. It was a stupid, reckless game. She shouted, the words tearing her throat. I regret ever meeting you. To make the break absolute, to kill the hope in his eyes and in her own heart. She yanked the Scarlet Letter lipstick from her pocket and hurled it over the railing, watching the tiny red cylinder vanish into the alley depths. It's over. There's nothing left. She left him there, broken. Later that day, a crash echoed from the tech closet. Leo had collapsed, physically and emotionally overwhelmed. Waking on the cold floor, the reality of his loss crashed over him, and he wept deep, guttural sobs for the future that had been so vividly, briefly within his grasp. Amelia's punishment was a home quieter than a tomb, and Richard's smug, victorious silence. That weekend, at another opulent, soul-sucking dinner party, Richard launched into his favorite soliloquy. And her father, the dreamer, ran that charming little bookstore into the ground. A lovely man, but utterly divorced from reality. Asterisk, the table chuckled expectantly, waiting for Amelia's placating smile. Instead, she set her wine glass down with a sound that cut through the chatter. The silence that fell was profound. Asterisk, my father, she said, her voice crystalline and cold. Built a temple for people who believe stories can change the world. He understood that a life lived without passion, without the courage to be imperfect, is a life that was never truly lived. He was more connected to reality in his dusty shop than you will ever be in your boardrooms, Richard. And she stood, the eyes of the room glued to her. Am done apologizing for the parts of me that came from him. I am done being a supporting character in your story. Asterisk, the shock in the room was palpable. She didn't wait for a response. She walked out, got in her car, and drove not home, but to Crestview. Still in her cocktail dress and heels, a coat thrown hastily over her shoulders, she burst into a late editorial meeting. A young, tearful author was being pressured to gut her controversial manuscript. Asterisk, stop, Amelia commanded. The room froze. She looked at the young woman, seeing herself, seeing Leo, seeing every stifled voice. Don't you dare change a word. Your voice is not a compromise. This company's cowardice is. She turned to the stunned editors and executives. I am not moving to London. I am staying. And starting now, we publish work that matters. Work that's dangerous. Work that's real. If you have a problem with that, the door is there. Asterisk, she left the meeting, her heart a wild, triumphant drum. And in the hallway, leaning against the wall as if holding it up, was Leo. He had seen and heard everything. The look on his face wasn't victory, but a profound, awestruck reverence. As if he was witnessing a resurrection. Asterisk, you stayed, he whispered. The words filled with the weight of 1,000 hopes. Asterisk tears, the first honest tears of her adult life, streamed down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. I couldn't breathe there anymore, she choked out. I can breathe here. She took a step toward him, the space between them charged with the static of a new beginning. The game is over, Leo. No more demands. No more lipstick. Asterisk, he closed the final distance, his hand rising to cradle her cheek, his thumb gently brushing away a tear. His touch was no longer a claim, but a question. Then what's left? He asked, his own eyes glistening. Asterisk, a choice, Amelia breathed, her world narrowing to the green of his eyes, to the feel of his hand on her skin. A messy, complicated, scandalous, and very, very real choice. Asterisk, in the quiet hallway of the publishing house they had, in their own chaotic and destructive way. Saved, Amelia Carter, 40 years old, chose. She chose the terrifying uncertainty over the secure prison. She chose the brilliant, passionate boy who saw the woman behind the manager. She chose the part of herself she had buried long ago. As his lips met hers, this kiss was different. It was not a stolen secret or a game move. It was a promise. A first sentence. It was the beginning of a story they would write together, word by imperfect, defiant, and breathtakingly beautiful word. Against every rule, every expectation, and every odd the world could possibly throw at them. The future was an empty page, and for the first time in her life, Amelia Carter was not afraid to fill it.